What is the reason of people's various abilities' emergence in the future? One can suppose that the less broad network is generated, the less time is needed for this generation, the shorter is the rotational shift, the more primitive focus dynamics is, the simpler solutions are taken. And if we talk about more deliberate, more analytic, and more ampliative solutions, one should activate much greater quantity of various different protoformic neurons from different brain parts for their adoption. More time is needed to create such network. Accordingly, rotational shift duration will increase along with the network growth. Speaking about the growth, I mean micro or nanoseconds during which this process takes place. Nuclear genome pharmacreators of very, very different neurons are gradually involved into this process. This is my assumption. Finally, in each of scenarios, the network growth ends at a predetermined point. Somewhere it ends on 1/400th of a second and refocusing occurs. Somewhere it ends on 1/390th of a second. This is another scenario. Somewhere on 100/350th, somewhere on 1/328th. But all these intervals separate processes on the micro level of the nuclear genome creators. The growth of this neuronal network, its complication and transformation happens. In principle, this general model described by you has 72% credibility. But it doesn't take into account namely properties of various neurons of answering requests. Because the groups of some neurons types can answer faster than the groups of the other neurons. The neurons providing some habits, skills, that is, spindle-shaped neurons, also participate here. They also specialize on those things which we have been doing repeatedly. Therefore, they don't enable additional energy potentials for implementing some of our actions. Because all this transforms into a habit, and now striatum leads to action. Everything is much deeper, but this scheme is interesting because it helps to describe how various scenarios are generated. And the time factor plays the role here. There is nothing more to stick with, because space is more flexible, but time is particularly related to reaction abilities on the neuronal level. The microtubules' role can become more clear already. Yes, microtubules work differently for neurons of various types. Working principle is the same, but information capacity is different. They just can provide the synchronization process of focus dynamics of each of the separate neurons during the network generation. Yes, that's what happens. It is. Nuclear creators are not able to do this. They accept information as small areals. No, they show the reaction principle itself, and the details are generated from configuration specifics, in which we focus at the moment. Besides, various brain parts, creators, regulators, while correspondingly coming to an agreement in something, obtain different execution from creators, interpretators. But we should attach here mitochondrial creators who supply information to them. Because mitochondrial creators who react via amygdala have completely different information than mitochondrial creators who react via medium hypothalamus, supposedly. This is a bit more difficult than it looks. These brain centers are too much different even in one form of structure, that is, they have different functions. Therefore, they intergrow into each other with axonal connections in a very complex configurational way. That's why they provide completely different connections. Besides, their reaction depends also on how the parallel structure in another hemisphere has reacted on this request. This also adds to the complexity of our understanding. In one hemisphere, the same amygdala has reacted on the information with this way, which has influenced on reaction formation by amygdala creators in the right hemisphere. All these issues, as I suppose, are still unknown to scientists. Probably that's because there is no opportunity for recording these reactions. The methods available now are too much rough. It's like shooting sparrows with the cannons, crushing a fly on the wheel. They are mostly directed on the brain morphology scanning, meaning synaptic connection specifics. Yes, and decision-making can be done in the first case by the creators of one part of the given center, and in the second case by the creators of the other part of the center. The first creators won't react, and so on. Especially this refers to the big structures, like the same cingulate cortex, to all brain in general. I mean the half of the brain, interbrain, and so on. As I understand, in the future, the first two neuronal networks will transform and modernize, or sort of upgrade. They will translate the own functions to the more high-amplitude brain parts, which creators will interpret all this stuff differently. Do you mean those scenarios where we already don't need to use arms or legs? We will use arms and legs for a long time in this dimension. If you think it's easy to teleport from one place to another, that is not entirely correct. Thus, some additional networks will activate, right? Brain activity changes. Activity of what we told about paleocortex and archicortex changes. Neocortex considerably thickens and activates. Which means that opportunities for realization of creators of exactly cortex diverse parts, including also temporal lobes and parietal, frontal lobes, sufficiently universalize, become stronger. Yes, we can do many things there, which we cannot do now. Let's say, why should we display somewhere if we can just watch what's going on at the moment? Let's suppose what someone is doing behind the walls of this room. We can tune on the definite individual's configuration and see what they do. We can send them a telepathy. They will perceive it, and there is no need to move somewhere. Relationships are universalized and relieved exactly in this regard. This means social relationships also improve to the extent that one can't lie here, because only sincere intentions can be realized here.